Call this meeting to order of the Board of Selectmen, special meeting on February 24th, 2022 at 6:30. We'll start by a roll call. Myself, Bob Carlson, the first selectman. Along with me, we have Nicole Porter, selectwoman, Brett Mastriani, selectman, Christine Dias, American admin finance director, and hopefully out there taking notes is Ivana Hugo, secretary or administrative assistant, excuse me. We'll go to the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We all just got off the cruise boat. Holy mackerel. Okay, brings us to agenda item number 3, which is public comment on non-agenda items. Is there anyone online or anyone present that would like to ask a question?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we have all these good IT people around. Okay, so there's no public comment. Okay. Agenda item number 4, selectmen comments. Either Nicole or Brett, do you have anything that you'd like to comment on at this point?
No, just that I was just on the Cultural Coalition meeting, and they are, with our ARPA funds, talking about purchasing a portable stage that could be used for obviously a variety of town uses. Definitely, it's big. The one that we were just happened to be looking at, certainly not the one that, and that's the definite buy, but just need to probably explore locations to store something like that. And that was just definitely something I was going to take back to here, but that's the only thing that I had to offer. Again, nothing definite yet.
Great, thank you. Brett, anything you?
I can just give an update that the farmers market is moving forward. They started accepting applications. They're going to try to get some funding from different sources and some crowdfunding. Hewitt Farm voted to allow it to take place there. So the first 4 are scheduled and underway.
Okay, I was Alexis from Sustainable CT reached out. So she said she's
Yeah,
speaking to you.
her, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. First selectmen's report and correspondence. So there's a few things have happened since the last time we met. We had police training on Monday and Tuesday in this building. Actually, I attended on Monday. It's pretty awesome, actually. They all thanked our town immensely for letting them use the building. They don't get enough training. I'll be honest with you, I was part of it, watching the training in the morning, and my heart was beating. They set it up like it's a live event, and it's pretty amazing. Then they came back on Tuesday and did it again, and they're looking maybe to come back in April. They don't have facilities they can use like this, and I said, as long as this one's empty, yeah, they can use it as much as they need to use it. Just let me know so I can let the library know, let Peter Nero know, and so on. But they were very happy, and so was Jay and Wayne, our 2 resident troopers, as far as being the host. That was great. On Monday, I did that on Monday morning. Monday afternoon, I had a meeting. Stand Up for Animals reached out to me. They want to come back with a different plan. As you know, they came to us with a 3,000 square foot regional animal shelter that was going to be up on Winterchog. They're looking to cut that down a bit. I'm going to meet with Kasha tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning to see what her feelings are on this. A lot of people think that North Sounding probably should have an animal shelter. It just depends on how big an animal shelter and what is it? Is it a regional shelter, and what's the end cost to the taxpayer to have a shelter such as this? So I told them I'd speak to Kasha about it, then I'd come back and speak to the Board of Selectmen and see if they want to come up with another proposal. But I told them the first proposal was just too big to wrap our heads around. There was quite a bit of cost to the town over the years, and not that we don't want this. I mean, we probably have more animals than we do with people in North Stonington. However, the situation we have now, with the exception of Concha traveling back and forth to Stonington, it's probably, as far as the taxpayers go, it's probably the most efficient, fiscally responsible way to do things. It's just that we don't have a shelter of our own. So well, there'll be more to come on that, I'm sure. I attended an affordable housing meeting last night. And basically what I told the committee was this, is they pretty much had till the end of June, the end of this fiscal year, to kind of get their act together, to get a committee formed that's a viable committee that can get things done, not just people sitting in a room and then nothing happens between meetings. If that's going to happen, we might as well just disband affordable housing and turn everything over to Kensa, which seems to have a much stronger group at this point. But I wanted to give them a last shot at it. They're thinking of doing things like a meet and greet and then trying to increase membership to their board. I recommended that they met with Kensa at least maybe every other month to find out what they're doing. They shouldn't be working on the same things. If Kensa seems to be taking like a single shot approach, where they take a piece of land, they try to convert it, then they go to another piece of land. We'll all be dead and gone by the time we meet our affordable housing minimums with that kind of a plan, but it's good to have. But I said that maybe affordable housing should be working on something else. So rather than them working on the same thing, if this doesn't come to fruition, then I'm going to ask the Board of Selectmen in June to disband affordable housing, because it doesn't make sense. As I said to them, we're calling volunteers out of their homes on winter nights to sit there and nothing gets accomplished. So, and I'll do everything I can to help them get through this. But if it doesn't happen, then, and they know it now because I've said it to them, that they won't be existing come July 1st. If you agree with that, that is. I went out to Troop B in Montville yesterday. The new lieutenant out there had a meet and greet for all the first selectmen and mayors that were in his jurisdiction, and that went well. Our 2 resident troopers were there also. And we had probably about 7 or 8 first selectmen and or mayors that were there, and a lot of good information that came about. And I think it's good to stay in contact with the troop. They're going to try to do more regional things where the resident troopers in Preston and Griswold and North Stonington and Town would try to do more together. So if we needed help, they would bring people into our town if they wanted to set up like we used to get DUI grants for speeding. We could set up the stops, the DUI stops, but we don't get those right now. But they said they could work it out amongst themselves, where all those resident troopers from the 4 surrounding towns come to North Kingstown, North Stonington for a night, and we would go to Preston for a night and so on. So that they're working on something like that, just to, because we know I get a lot of complaints on speeding. Seems to be one of the most phone calls I get in town hall. And the last thing I want to mention is I do have a meeting coming up with Mashantucket Pequots on Monday. I'm going to meet with Robert Haywood and Rodney Butler. This was supposed to happen last week, but I guess there was a few things that came up when they scheduled. They couldn't make it, so we rescheduled it for Monday. And I am bringing Nate with me on that, because they're talking about the sewer project they have out in their neck of the woods and possible tie-ins and so on. So I just want to make sure. I don't know all the answers, the questions to ask. I know Nate does, so he's going to come with me to that meeting. And that's about it. As far as that, next on the agenda, that's is old business. We have under that recreational capital and non-occurring expense fund. So I think I'll have Brett speak on that because he spoke on it before. So.
Yeah, as we talked about the recreation capital non-recurring expense fund to move something forward, I have one attached, actually 2 different ones attached, but the one I was leaning towards was that first one that's in your packet. It is
The one that was used to be part of Ledyard?
it was part of Ledyard, so I retweaked it to be North Stonington. So if you guys want to read through it and then have ask questions regarding it, we can do that. I can tell you the difference between this one and the one from Preston, I think, which is the second one you see, is the only way that this fund can use its money with the Preston one is through a town meeting. There's no dollar amount allowed. It's just through town meeting. The Ledyard one, as you see, it's pretty much similar, except it allows the Board of Selectmen to authorize monies that were gifted for specific purpose or use of this fund not to exceed, this one is $3,000 in a fiscal year. So as we look through it, if we are going to move one forward, that would be, I think, where we have to have some conversation on what dollar amount do we want to put in there, what's fair.
Yeah, one thing that you could look at with that not to exceed number, you could make it consistent with what has to come to a town meeting. You could make it $20,000. You know, depending on what they're fundraising for and how much they're bringing in, that could be a good threshold to work with.
Right. I just think not having any leeway on it, and you have to go to a town meeting for everything. So if they're raising funds for uniforms and it's a $2,000 expense or $1,500, we'd have to have a town meeting to authorize that expense.
Right, and in the same respect, the $3,000 seems a little bit low, because if you raised for uniforms for 2 sports seasons, you could exceed that.
So Brett, these are charitable donations and sometimes they're for a specific cause, correct?
Correct. So they're for donations to this fund, whether it's from fundraisers that they have, or if the town chooses to give money towards that at some point. Now, I'm not promoting that part of it, but that's in here and that's in pretty much the state statute. It talks about that. And also, if anybody leaves land to the rec commission for recreation purposes, and for some reason the town can't utilize that, then the sale and those proceeds then do go into this account.
So are you thinking of creating a budget line item for this down the road?
I mean, you could put $1 in there somewhere down there, and then that could be part of their capital plan if they wanted to.
Well, how can the town donate if it's not budgeted?
Well, we'd have to do it that way.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to do that to create the fund. You could create the fund. It would live in a separate, it wouldn't live in the general fund. It would live in a separate, it would live with CNR. And then any money that's going in there would just go in there. But in order to make a town contribution to it, then yes, you would have to include it in the budget.
Right, and it says it's, the fund shall be in the custody of the treasurer of the town of North Stonington, correct?
Yes,
Isn't all our
all
funds
funds
are
are in the custody.
Now, I noticed in the state statute and in a lot of these, it talks about funds being invested. We don't do that typically, right? We don't invest any of our funds.
We do not currently do
Yeah,
that.
that makes me a little nervous, so.
I just noticed in all the state statutes where it talks about different funds that the treasurer really can invest in different.
Yeah, I don't know if in the past treasurer, if she had ever done that in consultation with the first selectman, but it hasn't been done with the last 3.
The funds are the interest bearing funds though? Are they in a conservative account that draw interest?
They're regular interest accounts with Chelsea Groton.
And did I know that you had said, Christine, that $3,000 for not to exceed for an expenditure, that does seem low if there's a project or something so are we suggesting that we amend that
Mm.
amount?
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I brought that up. I
Yeah.
think if we move this forward, we should discuss that and come up with an amount and then move that forward with that new amount.
So like the Board of Ed's non-recurring fund, is there a limit that they can put in there?
No, and I don't know that you'd want to do that because if they're fundraising, say from businesses in the area towards a complete renovation of the fields to put in irrigation, you don't want to limit the amount that they can bring in.
Okay.
Because the Board of Ed non-lapsing account is all taxpayer money. This most likely would not be.
I think some of this comes from also, there are certain towns that utilize a fund like this for their full rec commission. Basically, they start the account, they put money in it, and then all their proceeds from their programs and stuff all go back into this account. So it's always a revolving account. Most of the towns that I saw, smaller towns like ours, don't utilize it that way. Bigger towns and cities do. They have a rec department fund that it's constantly funneling through their finance. This is slightly different.
And do we know if the rec commission plans on fundraising? Do they currently fundraise?
They have the ability to fundraise right now. They've had some new members come onto the commission, so I don't think they're opposed to it. But it hasn't been a focus up until this point.
So this is just a suggestion that we can create this for them. They can have it there. They can do not do what they want with it, but if they so choose to go on out and have a huge fundraiser, it just means that this is created now and the money can go in there to pay for one-time expenditures in the future.
Correct. And I did present to them and talk to them about it, and they voted to try to move this forward.
Okay.
And they did seem excited about the opportunity to try to fundraise. They didn't know they could before, even though it was there, but I did show them examples. There are certain towns that have like well, it's not GoFundMe. They take PayPal payments. Hey, do you want to donate to our rec commission and do it that way? So it might give them a little more boost to get out there and do some of
do
it,
something.
because they've talked about the uniforms and things in the past, and it just, I don't know if they saw the way to do it that way.
So they basically want to be kind of like the Education Foundation is to the Board of Ed. They buy things that aren't typically on a budget. They can use the monies for those type of things.
Yeah, and in here, so that last item says that we can't lower our budget because we say, hey, you have all this money in the account, we're not gonna fund you, basically is what I think that last statement said.
No, understood. So why don't we, I think maybe we should just try to come up with a new number for the, instead of the 3,000. And once we come up with that number, we agree on that, then someone makes a motion to put this through.
The 20,000 seems reasonable because it's cumulative, so it could be 5 different projects. And that would be something that would have to go to a town meeting, so if it was anything major.
20,000, if they went off and did fundraising on their own and we are not funding it through line items, I'm not, listen, I completely agree that the rec commission needs some help based on where they're currently at and programs and just feedback that I've heard, but I don't know if I'm necessarily in favor of creating a line item that every single budget year we give them money to put in the non-recurring fund, but they can go on out and do any kind of fundraising that they want, put it in there and be able to use it for what they want.
Exactly.
Is there, so why would we want to put a $20,000? Why would we want to put a limit on it if they had a big project? What are the,
I think because they are still a town group and they are a appointed committee of the selectmen, I think there should be some kind of oversight because there are new members that come on, go off. I think there needs to be some kind of oversight. And I think that's why they have somewhat of a dollar value in there, and there has to be some approval process.
Plus
okay,
their
I mean, I'm
direct-
not opposed to 20,000 then. If
Plus the
that's,
director is a paid employee of the town,
oh, okay.
Tom Fabian.
Yeah.
so. All right, so are you saying 20,000 might be the number?
Yeah, so such expenditures shall not cumulatively exceed 20,000 in a fiscal year.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, that'd be great, honestly, if they. could
I was just
raise
gonna
that
say,
percentage.
God bless them if they could.
Yeah.
I mean,
have
no Ed
20,000.
does that, but they have to have many big events to get there. I mean, between road races, dinner dances, trivia nights, it just doesn't happen overnight. All right, so we should entertain a motion then on accepting this.
So I'd like to make a motion to put forward to town meeting an ordinance as presented in front of you, creating municipal park and recreation capital and non-recurring expense fund for the town of North Stonington.
I second that.
Okay, and the only change in that was changing the 3,000 to 20,000, correct?
Correct.
Okay, any other discussion?
So the only thing that'll be added under section 6, it'll have the same what's section 7 in the Preston one that says this ordinance shall become effective 15 days after publication in accordance with the general statutes. So that will be added as well. And if you approve this, I will send it to the town attorney to make sure it's all good to go as is for a future town meeting.
Perfect. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, if none, we vote on this. All in favor of creating this non-recurring expense fund, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes 3-0. Thank you, Brett.
Thank you.
Okay, now we get down to agenda item number 7 is the budget. So what we'll do on this is, as we've done in the past, we go through the line item by line item. We can talk somewhat about revenue, but the Board of Finance ultimately votes on or listens to our presentation on expenses. But there is a two slight revenue changes that I have that I'd like to talk to you about. One is we got a number from the Board of Ed on A 3.05 tuition reimbursement was at 57,165. The new number is 114,330. Okay.
Are those for this current fiscal year? Or I mean, the next
Mhm.
fiscal, because some of the students pay in arrear.
Right,
So
this is
that-
only the ones that are paying for this coming year. It's not the ones from Preston that will be paying in the following. Once they start paying and it starts rotating through, we'll have that money every year, but not for next year.
All right.
So yeah, we actually got a number, it was over 200,000 for the budget after this one.
Yeah, so this represents 8 students. We currently have 4 in the year we're in right now, so this is 8 for next year.
Okay. The next thing is on B 4.02. We had $85,000, but after discussions with the land use officer and Cheryl, that we can raise that to $95,000, from 85 to 95. Yeah, it's A 4.02. After we go through the whole budget, we'll see if there's any questions and we can ask them then, answer them then. Okay, on the next line, I have nothing that we want to address at this time. There might be things coming up in the future, but not as of tonight. On the next page, so I'll say what I want to say about a particular page and we'll stop. And if Nicole, you or Brett want to have any thoughts on any of these line items, you're more than welcome. I've got no changes on board B1, section of B1, Board of Selectmen. Anything from either of you two?
Just the grant writer still actively out there. 'Cause I know he was on certain Zoom calls in the past and I just haven't seen him.
No, we actually were speaking with him yesterday. So he's out there. We haven't produced any grants, but he only gets paid if he produces grants.
Yeah, it's a per diem position, so he only gets paid when he submits timesheets. So there's times where there's more, times where there's less.
All right, thank you.
And I'll be honest with you, I probably, since we've had some early discussion, I probably have been not working on some grants that might have been worked on at the last administration. Okay, I've got nothing on B2, B3, B4, B5, on B6, tax collector. Christine spoke with the tax collector. She's being new. She needed, we discussed about some actuals and where we need to be. And on B6.03, computer expense, we're dropping that from 10,000 to 8,000. B7, treasurer, we're dropping that. No, I'm kidding, we're not dropping it, sorry. B8, B9, B10,
I
nothing.
just
else.
got it.
So I've got nothing else on that page, but I'm willing to entertain any thoughts by either of the other two selectmen on things that they might want to talk about or look into.
Nothing on that page as of now.
No, good.
Okay. Next page. Next page, we have some blanks. Actually, I met with Sean. He asked why we had these blanks. This is the last year we'll have to have this. I guess a few years back, they moved a lot of the planning and zoning to another part of the budget. So this will be the last year we have these blank lines because these lines didn't go away. They just have different numbers and they're farther out in the budget. There's nothing else on this page that I was attempting to drop at this point. There's really not that much on here. You've got economic development. Except for Brett, on the economic development coordinator, you've been working more closely with them. Where are we with that? Because I'm wondering if that number is a real number. I know we talked about possibly using an existing employee to do something 3 to 5 hours a week. Does that number have to stay at $7,500 at this point?
I don't think it does if we actually get to utilize someone already here. Then that number you could justify by the three hours a week at whatever that position pays.
When economic development discussed it, had they set a per hour salary for this position?
I want to say it was. Let me see if I can.
I did some calculations at $15 an hour at 5 hours a week and came up to about $4,000
Yeah, I want to say it was more like 20.
per hour.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
for a consultant type of thing, 20 an hour is a reasonable amount.
So do the math. And we figured 3 to 5 hours a week. Is that what that's what the EDC said?
Yeah,
So come with a number for me and let me know if that makes sense, because I think 7,500 might be high.
Well, I mean, if there's somebody in the town that we've already been talking
Yeah.
about and kind of alluding to, do we not, I mean, not that we have to say out loud right now what that per hour, but could we just use that as a,
yeah. I mean, I think you're safe at 6,000. So if I just did 5 hours a week at 20, you're at 5,200.
do you think there's enough for 5 hours a week?
Well, the way it was always thought about is there are certain weeks that it might be 8 hours and certain weeks there's 1 hour or no hours, but it's kind of like the rec commission used to do in the past. You know, there were certain weeks that had more hours than others. Especially, I want to say on the social media side of things, I think there's always an hour a week at least.
You
Yeah.
could spend on it.
I also think there's, if you have an event coming up that you're planning for, prepping for, there's more time that could go into it. If, once a month, if they plan out a social media strategy and create their calendar and schedule all their posts, there could be more activity that particular week. So I agree with Brett that the 6,000 is a reasonable.
Okay, so if you're in agreement, we'll change that number to 6,000. By the way, on the changes we made on the previous page, I didn't hear any pushback on either of those numbers, so those are fine, correct?
No.
Okay.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
Do we have an estimate of how many hours a week the director of rec puts in?
So we have requested that he be at the rec center between 2 and 4, Monday through Friday. In addition to that, he puts in additional time on the weekends and in evenings. He's there for the monthly rec meeting. So probably more hours than the previous rec director was.
Thanks.
Would you say an average of between 20 and 25 hours a week?
I would probably say so, yeah.
No, she's
Maybe.
comparing the current one to the one prior to that.
Yeah, so I think if you do the numbers, we probably pay less now than we did before based on hours.
The previous rec director put a lot of hours in early on, but towards the end of his career, before he retired, he was putting less and less. in.
Well, we also didn't require him to be there for a specific time period during the week.
No, you're right. He would come and go as he needed to, but
Right.
he would put in, 30 hours. a
Oh,
week.
he did. I'm not saying he didn't do he did a great job, but I'm saying when you look at the program that we're running now with the same pay, pretty much same base pay, we're getting more of a deal.
There's a little bit of more hourly accountability
Mhm,
now than there had been prior.
Understood.
That's a good way to.
All right, does that answer your question, Nicole?
Yeah, and just one other question. I mean, obviously, there's an increase and I'm not opposed to the increase, but, and I apologize if we've talked about this before and it's just in my other notes, but are the other, what I'm seeing in prior years, is that because of COVID and yeah, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. We ended up canceling a lot of programs, either because we were asked to by the school so that there wasn't COVID spread from rec programs and
Yeah.
then spill over into school, or programs just weren't offered by other areas.
Okay.
So they bring in $70,000 is what we're
That's the projection.
proposing
Yeah.
for this.
Yeah, so it's another thing, Nicole, a lot of their expenses are offset by income.
Yep, yep.
Okay, anything else on that page?
No. And I know that I was at the meeting that the rec commission talked about their summer program, in trying to figure out a way to raise rates a little bit to cover some more of the expenses because the increase in employment for that. So I know they were working on that. So that's something I think we should always keep an eye on. Make sure we're at a reasonable rate for our summer camp.
And for anyone listening, we have spots open right now. Early registration discount ends April 1st. Prices will go up after that. So sign up for your spots while you can.
Nice sales pitch had it in.
Just the inland wetlands, conservation and water pollution, did those also go to other line items? Is that why they're blank?
Yes,
Okay.
all the land uses, and you'll see it later on in the budget. Okay, anything else on that page? If not, we'll move to page 5. B 2206, we have a $100,000 expense line in there. Basically, we know that the expenses this year and last year were probably closer to 150. The reason we carry that line item, we're hoping and assuming that the one-story wing will come down, which will take about a third away. I met with the possible tenant in the second story of the two-story wing, and that's moving forward still. We've done some negotiating. We're going over there again next week. She's got her information back from the insurance companies, and we just have to work out some kinks before we bring it to a board of selectmen meeting to discuss, and then
That's
we'll
great.
send it to town meeting. So with that said, I'm requesting that we lower the B 2206 from 100,000 to 85,000. They say, why didn't we lower it to 50,000 if we're going to bring in 56,000? Well, we still have the expenses, but the 56,000, if that's the number, goes into the revenue line. It doesn't just cut down the expense line. It offsets it.
What did you just say you wanted to lower it to?
85,000.
85. Okay.
And you think that'll be enough to cover?
I think it will be, especially with the one-story wing down. And I'm also looking at a possible second tenant for the two-story wing on the lower level.
This proposed budget goes into effect when?
July 1st,
July 1st.
if it's been approved by the town.
So we would have to really get moving on bringing down the one story so that
Yes.
we can actually actualize.
Yeah, that'll
The
be
drop
coming up,
in-
and then when we call for a town meeting, that'll be coming up in that town meeting. Once we get that done and the RF, if he comes back, town meeting approves, if the town does approve, then we can probably get working on that pretty quickly. We hope to have it down before July 1st, if that's what the town wants.
Okay.
Okay, next thing is only one other change here, and it's actually an add-on, so might get some pushback on this. I spoke with the business manager of the Board of Ed. She actually called me, and she explained that we had, since now we're on Infinite Visions, she wondered if the town would consider taking the Infinite Visions number, which is around 13 and change, for their amount of money they pay yearly, and we pay, what was it, around 1,500 or 1,700?
$1,505.
1,505. So she asked if we'd be willing to add those together and divide by 2 and pick up 50% of the money, which means we would add $5,909 to this budget. I guess there's pros and cons to that. My thinking was that I know we spoke about shared service and we spoke about working closer together, especially with the new superintendent coming on. A lot of new facilities manager coming on. And I just thought maybe possibly it's an olive branch to go out there and say to them, hey, it's 5,909. It's not like it's 59,000, it's 5,909. And then if we sit in the meeting at a future date and we talk about working together, it shows that we are trying to work together, doing our part. If you as selectmen don't want to do that, That's up to you, but it's something I wanted to discuss anyway. I've told her that I was in favor, but I couldn't make that decision without speaking to you two first. So that's where we are. So I'll be glad to have discussion on this item.
I can say I wouldn't be in favor of that. For a few different reasons. Number one is that's not how we sold it to the town. I shouldn't say sold it to the town, but that's not how it was explained to the town when we signed up, or to the Board of Finance, because I was on Board of Finance at that point. We were told that we were getting a deal because they already signed up. So we were working off their contract. There actually would have been a bigger deal if we did it all together. We would have saved on training back in the day, but we didn't go that route. And then secondly, I do have to say, I'm surprised that the business manager would call you direct instead of go through the Board of Ed and the chair that way. I'm not sure if Christine calls over, our Christine calls over their Christine and says, hey, will you pay for this? I'm not sure it goes that way. And then thirdly, I can come on board with paying a little more, but I think it would be based on our budget size differences. So if rough numbers, if we're 1/4 of the overall budget and they're 3/4, then we pay 1/4 of that yearly bill. I'd be on board with that at most, but splitting it, I can't see why we would split it. I think they're using it for, or they will be using it for time clocks and other things that we
They use
don't
it for
utilize
payroll.
it for
They
yet.
use payroll.
They use it for payroll. Yeah.
So I think a split down the middle wouldn't be the right way. I think maybe 25% would work.
So I need just a little tiny background. I remember in meetings talking about the Infinite Vision software, and this was something that was going to tie in kind of like the whole town, right? Like everything was going to be a lot more visible and less less kind of manual digging for
It's,
data.
everything is more standardized. The reporting will all look the same, but we still have 2 separate accounts, 2 separate databases for our information. But we'll be able to run the same reports and everything will look the same.
So the town hall is using Infinite Visions,
We are currently implementing the software, yes.
and they are already live. The Board of Ed is already live.
That this is year 2, I think. They had to switch software because the software they used was sunsetting and wasn't going to be available anymore. So they, along with a lot of other boards of education throughout the area, transitioned to Infinite Visions.
So was it a town meeting was it at a town meeting, Brett, that this was all? Yes.
Mhm.
So at the town meeting, was it the original price to purchase the software that was decided, and is what they're asking us to split the annual fee
No.
for it? Is how, I just want to
So
understand.
When we had the town meeting, the amount that was presented was the setup costs and the first year fee. So
Okay.
the 1505 was included in that total $60,000 number.
Okay. And now they're asking us to split what?
They have their yearly cost is over $13,000. So they're asking us to combine our cost and their cost and then split it in half. So our half would be 7,000.
And to Brett's point, do you have a sense of use of the product and who is actually using the bulk of the product?
We're going to be using it in different ways. I think we're ultimately, at some point, we would like to both all be using it to the best of its ability, but some of it for us has to do with figuring out a time clock that'll coordinate with it and how we're going to handle that. And Board of Ed does their own payroll in-house. We outsource our payroll. So there's additional functionalities that Board of Ed is already using that we might not use at the beginning or might not use at all.
So our additional spend on here would be 5,000 and change? Is that what it comes down to?
5909 would be the additional spend.
Almost 6.
So basically, we're up at.
That's making a huge difference in their big Board
I-
of Ed budget, $6,000.
As Brett said, I think was, in their case, it was the principal of it. And I can understand the point of view, Brett's point of view.
I can understand also if they're paying the entire fee, they're just asking us to split it because we're using a portion of the software.
My thought was that, as we've all said, we want to do things, especially with so much turnover in the Board of Ed right now, with new superintendents coming in, new business, not new business manager, superintendents, new facilities manager, new special needs director. There's a lot going on over there. So we thought if there was a time where we could ever do shared services, it would be now. There's also been talk about how they're going to handle the grounds. So I thought as we have those discussions later on, then, and we should have, and it's been asked by Brett and other people to have a joint meeting, which I think we should have a joint meeting coming up, just kind of trying to get through this budget. We're both working on the budget right now, but have a joint meeting coming up where we can talk about shared services. I just thought this would say, hey, we're doing our part of trying to be the good neighbor. We're willing to do this, even though we know that you're probably using 75% of it and we're using 25 or whatever the split is. It's not a budget breaker, but it just shows that we're putting out the olive branch to say, now we're giving up. So what will you do for us? Sometimes we get pushback from on the Board of Ed about charging them space for this building. We charge them a very small amount of money as rent. And the thing is, they'll say, well, it's coming out of the same pocket, it's coming out of the same taxpayer's pocket. So what does it matter if it goes directly to the town, or it goes to us, then we give it to the town.
Yeah.
But for accounting purposes, the town would like to know, what is the Board of Ed actually spending? Because if they didn't have this facility, they'd be renting a facility somewhere for the Board of Ed. And what would that cost? Probably cost a lot more money than what we charge them to be here.
So if the town wasn't using this software, it would still be costing them $13,000
Mhm.
a year. So that's to me, it's, you brought it up. You said, oh, now I'm drawing a blank, but you said it's the principle on it, we should split it because we're both using it. And that's why I think it should be the percentage versus the half. And I agree, we need to talk about shared services. Unfortunately, I think we missed the boat on a lot of those discussions because they already hired a new facilities person. They hired some other different roles, and we hired roles. So to talk about shared services, it would have been have to happen. Sorry, I just got back from vacation. I was a little slow. It would have to happen already for those major expenses where we could have tried to talk on things. And I'm not saying that maybe when we do have a shared services talk, then this comes up and maybe that's for next budget season. But I think a split down the middle, I don't think it's the right thing to do. I don't think it shows what the town is utilizing or the school's utilizing, because they're already utilizing it. They were getting that bill anyways, whether we signed on or not.
So if we put ourselves in the taxpayers, of which we all are, in their seat, they don't care what bucket it comes out of. They care what their mill rate is going to be and what we have to pay for taxes. To me, it's almost just semantics, whether it's in our bucket or their bucket.
Well, it's the same argument then about the school, right? And that's why I thought, because they say it's coming out of the same bucket. Why do we have to pay for them to use the school?
Which
So-
is true, except when it comes to voting down the budget and the municipal budget goes through, the Board of Ed goes down. And then how do you figure out what you're tweaking? So
Right, but I thought it was.
sometimes it's nice to keep those in their same
Yeah.
pools.
But
And
not
yes,
being-
ultimately, it's the same dollar.
But not being a big number, I think it carries more weight as again, the principle of it. It carries more weight than the number itself. The number is 5,900. It's not 59,000 or a big number. So to me, it's showing that we're willing to work together and it's not costing, and Nicole, this comes out of the same pocket. So it's saying, hey, you can't use the argument against something if you then use it with something on the other hand. It's just, we're agreeing with their argument in this case that.
But we're not, it's shared services. We're not getting the same, we're not utilizing at the same rate as them.
No, I agree.
And-
And I disagree with you on the share. I don't think we've missed the boat on shared service. I think if we get the right people in here, we can have those discussions later. I don't think we missed the boat. I also think there's a lot to those discussions, and just run those through before they even started interviewing whether it's been a mistake. But any other questions? Sean Murphy has a question. Is anybody online with a hand up?
Yeah, I sort of agree with Brett on this. The Board of Education budget is much greater. It's probably 70, close to 70% of the total budget now. And they utilize it to a greater extent, the software itself, with the amount of the payroll that they have to process with it and accounts payable and so forth. You see many more transactions taking place. So I would agree that that we shouldn't pay half. That we're not, usage wise, we're not using it to the extent that they are. And another comment, I'm disappointed to, I think what I'm hearing is that we're not going to use the software to the full extent. We're not going to institute it for payroll, I guess, the first year.
We don't know yet. We are still in
And,
the implementation phase.
I strongly disagree with not going full bore, and we need to eliminate that expense now that we have for prime pay in the budget, now that we have software that is capable, we're paying for, and it's capable of doing. I know where the pushback is coming from in town hall, and I disagree with not instituting it from July 1st with the rest of the software. Thank you.
So I
Thank you,
mean,
Sean.
is there anything saying, does it, to Brett's point, if we say, you know what, we're going to contribute 4,000 on our side, and you guys pay the rest? To me, that's still an olive branch, but it's having them pay for a little bit more than half, seeing they're using more of it.
What's the total with our portion?
15.9, you said, is that?
The total?
Total, yeah, for the Infinite Vision, for the town, we should say it that way.
So our invoice is $1,505. Their invoice is $13,323.73.
Okay, so the total is, add them together.
13 what?
Oh, there's 13.
13,323.
That's just the Board of Ed's total,
Yeah,
correct?
so
Yes.
14 and change.
Plus the 1,000, what was it?
So the total is $14,828.74.
Okay. So Brett or Nicole, if you'd like to make a motion as to what we want to work with on that, we can discuss it.
I think 4,000 is a compromise in my mind.
So that would be adding $2,495 to line B 2502, if that was what we're doing.
Thoughts, Brett?
I mean, I'm closer to that because it's close to 25%, slightly over 25%. So I do think that shows an olive branch, but I still have a problem with the process. So I don't mind moving that forward, but I have a problem that their budget making group it didn't go through the Board of Ed. I think it should have went through the Board of Ed and come to the first selectman that way.
So I'm going to note that, and when I call the business manager tomorrow after whatever decision is we make, I will note that was a pushback.
So what line item is that?
B 2502.
And can you just give me that number one more time that we're adding?
You would be adding $2,495.
So basically, it's the 1505 plus the 2495 to come up with the 4,000, correct?
Mhm. So the new total on that line item would be $40,720.
The only comment I'd like to say is maybe it'd be beneficial to come up with a percentage number. So then every year we can,
I actually agree with that, instead of just a random number.
yeah, so what gets us closest to 4,000?
Well, I mean, that percentage might change though, because if we end up expanding the use for the town hall for the software, then we're going to be much closer, I'm sure, to 50%.
No, I think that would have still been included. right? We don't
Yeah,
pay.
we're
extra.
not changing anything. They're, the modules that have been purchased are the modules that are purchased.
Okay, it's just the phasing in of the use of it over time. Okay,
So the dollars, that part won't change of
Okay.
the percentage of.
okay.
And I don't want there to be any misconception on the payroll part. We are still utilizing the payroll functions. We just do not currently run our own payroll checks and do our own tax deductions and all of those things. We outsource to Prime Pay for that. And we did not talk about getting rid of Prime Pay when we talked about implementing this software. That was not part of the discussion at town meeting or at any meetings.
But it's something we can look
It's
at.
something we can look at, yes.
And I have to agree, like with Sean, it's probably something we should look into and take a really hard look at whether we can do it and how that works with the software. Once we get.
It's not a software issue, it's a staff issue. We have one person that runs payroll and also runs all payables and does all financials. So if we can take something else off that person's plate, potentially we could do that, but that is one person.
Well, that might be a talk for shared services.
Okay, so you had the total before was 14,000. What number was it? If we did that as 25%, Christine, what would that number be?
So 25% would be $3,707.19.
What would 30%?
$4,448.62.
I'm good with 30.
Another $500 for.
Yeah, so our fees are not gonna change with this. It's an evergreen software. It shouldn't go up. So if you pick a $4,000 number or you pick a random percentage, it shouldn't change.
Oh,
So
Okay, so it won't go, so we're not seeing an increase.
we're not supposed to.
Okay, then if we're
So
not. gonna-
unless one side decides to pick up a new module, and then I think if one side decides to pick up a new module, they should have to pay for it.
Okay, then I'll go back to Nicole's 4,000.
4,000.
And then if we see something different next year where they try raising the rates, then we work on it there. All right,
sold.
Okay, so
move on.
why don't we vote on that? So we had discussion. We want to tell the Board of Ed and the business manager that we'd be willing to pick up 4,000 of the total combined fees between the town's fees and the Board of Ed's fees. Is that correct?
yes,
Okay. So
Do we have to vote on that?
we have.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
We vote at the
No,
end on
yeah,
the
you
whole
can-
budget.
Okay. we'll get
Okay,
that. All right,
so
so we
we'll
just
put
agree,
4,000.
we'll agree to it then.
Yes.
Perfect. Next page. On page 6, line item number 2705, streetlights,
Oh, we're on what?
page 6. You might have a different, is yours different than mine? What's your top thing, Public Works?
B, just
27.
tell me what B what?
So I'm looking at line B 2705.
I'm on page 7, Nicole.
Okay, gotcha.
I think mine has just
Yep,
more,
street
smaller
lights.
print, so I have more probably on it. All right, so looking at year to date and looking at what was proposed, I'm proposing we drop the $12,000 streetlight number down to $10,000. So we eliminate $2,000 off that line item. I think we'll be fine.
Okay.
And on town garage expenses, 2703, 27.03, that's $24,000. I'm thinking we could drop that 24,000 down to 22,000. Save another $2,000 there,
What line item was that?
27.03.
Two up from where we just changed. He went backwards.
Oh, he's going back.
Yeah, I skipped the line. I forgot to highlight it.
Christine, do you know where we are on B 2707 year to date?
Yes. I have a lot of papers. Hold on. Okay, B 27 what?
07.
2707 diesel and gas. We have spent $35,416.04.
So do we think 54 is enough?
You know what, I
with
was
the-
literally just gonna say, given
The
what's going
increases
on.
that we're seeing? I just hate to be
Well-
short on something like that.
Well, I'm hoping things calm down before July when this starts, but one never knows. But if you said 35 and change is what we have so far year to date?
Yeah, so we've spent 67.8% of that line to date.
And that's about how far we're on the budget right now too, correct? We're about 68% into the budget.
I just think so the increase from last year isn't I don't know if it's in
I might-
relation to what prices have gone up.
Yeah, I might
What am I
almost
doing?
take the 2,000 that we saved in one of the other top line items and put it in diesel and gas, maybe. I mean, it would be nice to be
So-
able to save, but I agree, God only knows what's gonna happen with gas.
So raise that to 56,000.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
the
it's
light,
just a
the money you took
suggestion.
from the lights. maybe
Yeah.
move
We'll
down
still
there.
take it from the lights, we'll just add
Yeah, I mean,
2,000.
we're
to
still
the-
saving two, but
Okay. I'm not opposed to that. As you said, Nicole, let's hope this
yeah,
crashes between now and then. Okay. So
The B 2710, the town property, wait, sorry.
That's where we've been paying the expenses for 298 North Wesley Road at. That's why the numbers are high in the actual column.
Okay.
It should be $7,500.
And now what about the labor? Why'd we go from 500 to 10,000?
general 27.11.
Yeah, and I guess where are we year to date?
So year to date, we are $3,688.94. And I am drawing a blank, so I can't speak to why it was
Right.
500. It's been budgeted at 10,000.
yeah, obviously it
Historically.
wasn't enough if we're already at 3 and change.
I just don't know if 10 is too much on experience and where we've been when we look at numbers like that.
Yeah, I
Well, we
cannot,
could go down to 8 if we're 3 and change already. Town property maintenance, it says.
You have any insight on that?
we don't have a janitor. We don't have a custodian.
We sub that out.
It's a labor line.
But for maintenance. So is that what we charge? So if they're painting a building, does this come out of that?
No.
So I guess that would
I
be my
need to talk to
question.
Donnie because
Okay,
I'm blanking.
Do you want to just drop it to 8?
I'd
Okay.
say drop it to 8 for now. And then get more clarification.
The
There
what?
hasn't been a Monica since I've been here, so I can't speak to that.
Daisy,
We pay for a cleaning company and that comes out of B-22.
so yeah, I guess we'll drop it to 8 and see what.
Okay.
Well, can you look at what we paid?
I don't have access to QuickBooks here.
Okay. I just, if we know what we paid the 3686 from, okay.
Okay, so we're saying that B 27.11, we want to drop from 10,000 to 8,000?
Yeah.
Just keep
Yep.
kicking that $2,000 back and forth.
I know.
Okay. You get that noted, Christine?
Yes.
Okay. So on this page, we had a couple of presentations since the last time we met. One of them was on B 30.03 Wheeler Library. Do I have any discussion on that line item?
Yeah, I can start the discussion on that. I think we need to lower that. And I actually would propose keeping it flat to the 65,000 that we did prior. Now, we did go up 10,000 from 2021 to 2022, but we doubled it almost since 2019, 2020. No other line item really, or department have we increased that percentage wise that much. Now, I agree they are a valuable resource to the town. They do wonderful things. And we have been increasing our funding to them. They do have their endowment, which brings in significant amount of revenue for them. Where some of these other places we look at don't have a revenue generating stream. And they also can do fundraisers, things like that. I think their request of 85, I just can't see how we could do that. And I know we have some more revenue coming in, things like that, but I think we have to look at it like we look at anything else. And if, when Board of Finance says, look, they want a pretty much flat budget, I understand that we might look at that as saying, well, our municipal budget is flat total, but I also think we should be looking at the different departments. And, you know, I can say, I'd rather reduce that or keep it what it was. And if you really wanted to spend that $20,000, I think that's where we look at some of those capital items that we need, that we cut every year compared to putting it there. And, you know, we do know that they will be coming to us for an ask when they start a renovation project. So that's in the pipeline. I think we can't increase it that much compared to others.
Nicole, thoughts?
I actually respectfully disagree. I think that this year and last year have probably been particularly bad on the library with COVID and what they've been able to bring in for their annual appeal. I think that if we leave it as is, not knowing what is going to happen when we put it forward to Board of Finance, if we have to come back and cut things again, then I think we have to take a hard look at it. But I personally would like to see it move forward.
Okay, so and I'm kind of in the middle with both of you. So I agree, Brad. I think we was doing $30,000 back in 2018, 2019. But I think we also understood at that time, the library was grossly underfunded, especially when you compare it to other libraries of its type around it. It is a gem within the town. Although I don't agree that going up $20,000 is the correct thing to do when you see, as you said, we do a lot of cutting in the capital side. We make, seems like we make other lines crawl for $1,000 here and $500 there. And to give $20,000 at this point, I agree with you, it's too much. So I think that we went up $10,000 from 2020-21 to 21-22. I think we should go up another 10 now to go to 75,000. So it's kind of splitting the difference. But my recommendation would be to drop it $10,000. And then if the Board of Finance gives us pushback, we could go back down to the 65 if we had to, but.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. It was, but it has nothing to do with whether I agree or disagree with
Okay.
you.
So
It's-
anyway,
I hit it.
so.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
So that's my, we're gonna do 75,000, but I'll be glad to, someone can try to change my mind, I guess.
Yeah, I still think that's high. Like I said, it's still a greater percentage than anyone else's increase. Well, I won't say anybody else's increase, but the majority of increases in this budget. And I couldn't support a budget moving that forward with that money in there. I think I would like to look at us as we're elected to make those hard decisions and not send it to the Board of Finance and saying, you know, if we have to come back, then we can lower that. And I've been there and I've done that, but I'm hoping that we build trust in a relationship where we can say, look, this is the best we can do. This is it. And I know you firmly support the increase in the library, and I support them. I just think over the years, when I've been seeing it, the increase has been dramatic. And I understand when we compare private library to other private libraries and how they're funded through the town, I understand there is a vast difference. But like they also said, not every library has an endowment that they generate a few $100,000 from potentially.
Are you opposed to
year.
the 75?
I
That-
am. I think that's too high. I'd be on board with 7 or slightly more, like a 10% increase. But I think jumping 10 is still tight. I just, when we, like Bob said, when we work on these budgets for so long and we take $100 off this one or 200 or, and then we just say, okay, well, here's $10,000 for this group. And on the municipal side, when we're really trying to get things done, and I look at it from the EDC side, when we are trying to have a committee that can generate revenue when they work on programs that bring businesses in, and we don't want to fund those positions, I have a hard time just signing off.
So I know what you're saying, and I did the same thing where you're trying to compare line items, and it's tough to do that. But no one said building budgets are easy, and this is not easy, and you try to take each line item as it is. It's almost like when you have a case and you can't present prior evidence. So I know what you're saying about EDC, and I know was a passion of yours when you were on that, and I know the budget always didn't go your way, but I think in this particular case, the Wheel Library is one of maybe a handful of things in town that when you think of North Stonington, you think of the Wheel Library. It's one thing that shines. I think they do an awful lot of good for a lot of people. We don't even know who they touch. It's not a place you just go and take out a book these days, and they're trying to get more and more, expand more and more into what they want to do. I'm comfortable with the 75. I'm not comfortable with giving them no increase at all. I'm also not comfortable with going to the 85. So
So what about 71,500? 10% increase.
I'm in favor of 75.
yeah, I think, and I don't think we just go to the Board of Finance and say, well, we'll move this down to 65 if you don't like it. I agree with you on that, Brett. We have to come with what we think is a fair budget. And I think that also knowing some of hoping, you can't rely on revenue that we haven't received yet, but hoping that we do some things down the road that we think are coming our way that will be helpful. But I think we have to protect the Wheel Library as an asset that it is. And I'd have trouble coming lower than 75,000. But any hands up?
No hands up.
Okay, Sean, you want to say something?
I think the increases that we've had to Wheeler Library in the past few years, taking it from 30,000 to what'd you say it is now, 65. Our whole town does good things. Our town hall, our highway department does good things for this town. We don't increase their budget by, Brett was going to settle on 10%. I'm sure they would, we're not increasing the town budget by 10% each year. The library over the years has utilized the extra money and expanded. They didn't used to have the same number of personnel that they have now. They're not providing, double the services they did back in when we were at 30,000. There's a lot of people that no longer give to the library because they feel they're giving it to the library in their tax increase now. And I'm one of them. I used to contribute to the library and no longer do because I feel it's in our tax. It's in our taxes now, and that would be contributing twice. But I think the increases are outrageous. If our labor budget went up to this extent, to this percentage, we wouldn't accept that. And I don't think we should accept it from the library.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion? So what do we have we're not going to get a consensus here, I don't believe so. Nicole, what do you think it should be?
75.
I believe 75. Brett, you think it should be what, 71.5?
Correct. I think it should be based on something, a percentage, something, not just an arbitrary number.
I don't think it's arbitrary because it's similar to what we did last year. prior to the year before. So
Well,
why would you say? it's
That's
arbitrary?
because it was we keep saying it was underfunded prior when it was 1,000, then 20,000, 30,000.
Now, you have to disagree with Sean to the point where he says they're not doing much more now than they were when we give them 30,000. I totally disagree. I know what they do with the school now. I know what they do with the children's programs now, which are amazing. I mean, I know our first, second, and third graders walk over there all the time. They're doing more things with the walk through the village, the storyline. I can't say that there's probably less people taking out books, but I think there's more people using the library for other things. I know people go in there and use it for their laptops. They help people out with their taxes if they need help with their taxes. They do a lot of things that people don't know what they do on a regular basis.
So when you look at this and you're saying 10,000 this year, because that's what we did last year. So in 3 years from now, are we going to give them 30,000 more than we're giving them now?
I'm not
Is
saying
that the
that.
philosophy?
No,
you're
I'm not
utilizing?
saying that. I'm saying we're coming through two tough years with COVID. I think that we saw, they announced that in their, year-long. Yeah, Nicole.
The annual appeal.
Annual appeal, sorry, yes. In the annual appeal, they were down. I think they've collected they put that at, I think it was 75,000. They collected in the high 50s, the low 60s so far with the year just about coming to an end. So, no, I don't think, I just think it's a situation where I wouldn't be opposed to being 75,000, leaving it there for the next 3 years at that number. But, and as you said, they're probably going to come to us, and I think she said May of 2023 for probably an ask when it comes to the addition that they want to put on, the renovation that they want to do. So I think I also understand what Sean said. I get what you say, Brett. That seems like other line items, gravel for $100 here and $500 there. Yeah, that's the highway department and other things in town do a lot of great things for town, and they have line items in the budget, and we're buying capital for them. We're buying trucks and so on. So anyway, if we can't come to a decision, I say we either have to leave it at 85 or we have to come to a number.
I mean, you guys came to 75. I just, like I said, I won't support the budget at that, but I'm one vote.
So when you say you won't support the budget, so when this budget's complete, we go to the Board of Finance and they say, it's good, you don't have to do a thing. You won't support the budget because of that one line item?
I don't
Or you don't support
support
this line
sending it to
item?
the Board of Finance with those numbers in it. No,
So at the end of the night, you will not vote to send this forward with that number in it?
I don't think so, because I have to feel comfortable with it to support it. And it's my belief.
Well, what if I don't feel comfortable with one of the things that you put in there?
Then it's your right to not to vote for the.
So when we,
budget.
none of us vote for the budget, because I don't agree with something that she said, I agree with something you say, so we all don't vote on the budget and we don't send it forward. That makes no sense.
No, that could happen.
No, it could happen, but it shouldn't happen. We're here as a board to negotiate and get, there's give and take on everything. We all have separate ideas. I might think this is important for the library to get 75. You might think that some capital line, I might need to get more money than I agree on. So we have to support each other and support a budget we can put forward. So if I think that a particular line item is maybe getting too much, that I would have liked to see them get less, but you and Nicole decided you wanted it more, then I'm gonna have to live with that. I'm not gonna not support a budget that the three of us put together because I don't agree on every line item that you two agreed with. Because we're not gonna agree on all the same line items.
You're right, we're not. But that's.
So to
That's what we
hold up
do
a
here.
budget moving forward because
I'm not saying I'm holding it up, but I can't say that I
just
support
said
it
it. Well,
100%.
So we, at the end of the night, we vote to send the budget to Board of Finance. You're gonna vote no because of a line item. Then I can vote no because of a line item I didn't like, and Nicole can vote no, we don't send it forward, which makes no sense.
I'm
So-
just stating my point.
Yeah, so I say, so right now, if we were to vote, 2 out of 3 would vote to leave it to drop to 75. I say we continue and then have Christine tally up all the different changes we've made here and there. And at the end of the day, we have to look at the final number and see if it's something that we can live with and move forward. To me, all we're doing is moving around money between line items. I'm going to be happy with something, you're going to be happy with something. So I say we right now, we have 2 out of 3 that vote to drop it to 75. Let's move on, let's finish it, and let's see what the number is at the end of the night.
I agree
And
with
if
you.
that's something that Brett can live with, if that's something that we can live with, then we're good.
And I just want to point out that this is the biggest dollar value that we've talked about in an increase. So it should be a discussion, but I think a 15% increase in 1 year for one, if you look at them like a department, that's huge. I think that's over the top.
Okay, so put that 75,000 for now, and we'll discuss it. Do you have the ability to add them up at the end now? Good, thank you. Next, anything else on that page? I apologize.
Again, just want to clarify the negotiation funds and the affordable housing at the bottom of page 7, someplace else.
Yes,
Okay,
Negotiation funds just has nothing in it because we aren't going into negotiations next year.
gotcha.
So we
And
don't have to keep a
affordable
dollar in
housing?
there. or anything? We can leave it at 0.
I think you all need to have a discussion if you want to keep that as a line item. If you want to keep it
Negotiation?
as a line item, then yes, I'll put $1 in.
Well, can you give us a little background on that one?
No. So
Thank you
in
for your honesty.
in theory, that line item would be where you would put money if you were in the middle of negotiations and you wanted to put all of what you potentially could be giving it for increases in one line item. But then you would have to transfer it into the individual salary line item. So to me, philosophically, it doesn't make sense. So that's why I can't give you a background on it. Sean, do you have anything?
I don't think we had a negotiation line item,
Yeah,
but
Okay.
let's get rid of it.
Okay.
the Board of Ed utilized it.
I
But
believe
that would
it.
be in their own, right?
But Board of Ed can do transfers internally and don't have to go to the Board of Finance.
Right.
In for a lot of positions, but it may end up being 5 or 6%. So this would cover the difference. If the contracts actually get passed are at 6%, then you hold 4% in this negotiation fund to be redistributed.
Right, and then you would have to go to the Board of Finance to transfer the money from that into the individual line items for
So
use.
as our finance admin,
What do you suggest?
what do you suggest?
I suggest we continue to do it the way we've been doing it.
So
And
get rid of that line item.
Okay,
we haven't even started negotiations on steelworkers yet. So,
But if we're not funding it with anything, then it doesn't matter. So we're not putting any money in there.
yeah, their conversation now is put $1 or put nothing, not put a percentage.
Always built 4 times that year of 0. Not 3, but 4.
All right, so leave it at 0.
okay. And affordable housing?
That's in B34.
Thank you. I love the fact that you can just rattle these off the top of your head.
okay. Page, well, I won't tell you the pages, it was on separate pages, different
Yeah.
pages. I'm on B 3401, office expense and the land use. I talked to Nate and Cheryl, and we think we can drop that from 3,500 to 2,000.
To 2,000. What's their use to date right now? It was in like 500. Is that, am I just, for some reason I'm recalling a number like that.
$154.50.
Well done on their part.
So Bob, what did you suggest we drop that to?
Down to 2,000.
Okay.
And on B 34.052 miscellaneous planning. That's water pollution control. They think they can drop that down to 2,500 from 5,000. They've got with Bill Zeker on board. They feel there'll be more, even though they're at 185 in 2020, 21 and 500 in 21, 22. I felt there's going to be more need for testing and so on of water. So, but 5,000, even Nate thought that was, came from the chair of WPCA. He thought that was padded, and he felt 2,500 was enough to be there, so that'd be a $2,500 deduction.
$0 spent to date.
But we just brought Bill on a little while ago, and already things are happening over there, so. And that's all I have before we get to capital. So anything else on that page with you two?
Nope.
Nope.
So let's go to capital.
Do you want me to give you your total for government operated before we move on to capital?
Sure, if you have it.
So you had been working off of $5,357,756, which was an increase of $180,349. With the changes you've made, it is now $5,323,751, which is an increase of $146,344.
Thank you.
Do you have something that can pull up what, or a dollar value of salary increases?
We talking like across the board? there?
Yeah, so out of that 146, what do we think it is based on the contractual?
Well, we had a-
salary
we
increases
had
and things
2% placeholder across the
Right.
board on the employees, both steel workers and ASME.
What have past contractual raises been? Has it been averaged at 2%?
Well, I can tell you what I found looking around at other towns and speaking of the first selectman, and everybody seems to be between 2, 2.5, 2 3/4. I haven't heard anyone that's hit the 3 mark yet. I've been in discussions with at least 4 or 5 first selectmen and or mayors. And they're telling me that 275 is as high as they've gotten. They haven't had a 3 yet. They've been proposed, people have come and proposed more than 3, but they've not hit that mark.
Okay.
Nor they think they will. So I'm just thinking that if they haven't, I don't, we're negotiating it, so I'll
Okay.
just say. But there's nothing telling me that other towns across the state are doing 4,
Are
5,
both doing
6%
more.
increases.
Let's talk capital.
Let's talk capital.
Okay. One thing we know, because of Don came back the last meeting and kind of switched something out on us. He asked to take the Mack truck replacement out, which was 120,000, and replace it with a walking floor trailer. At $92,000, he's in the process of getting pricing on that now. We also looked at what it would cost to repair. Sean, I did ask about if he documents the maintenance, and he does document all the maintenance and cleaning of the trucks, which you asked me for yesterday. And Sean's point was, each year we taking a truck and we have money set aside for refurbishing? Do we take something, refurbish a truck a year, so we're not constantly changing over trucks? And are we washing them, especially this time of year, washing salt off the undercarriage and so on? We do have a wash station, as you saw when we toured that facility. Were you at that one, Brett? Town garage?
Town
facility?
garage,
Okay.
yeah.
So if we did do what he just asked us to do, that would remove the 120 and replace it with a $92,000 number.
Yeah, and we would keep it, since it's not an actually created line item yet, it would still be C 2.03, just renamed walking floor trailer.
And that was on schedule for next year? In your capital improvements?
I think he's just swapping out the years, right?
And as you heard at the last meeting, they did get the older truck repaired. Cost about $9,000, but it did get repaired. So it's no longer smoking, and we can take it to the Lisbon incinerator.
So I think there was confusion on my part. It was not on the schedule for replacement until 26, and the value was much lower. So I don't know if Donnie had looked at that in the plan when he reevaluated. So at this point, we've taken out the tractor trailer. We didn't put it into another year. And next year, we'll figure out what we're doing as far as some of the other things that are in next year's pool.
I think the thought too was, I know Brett, you looked up that night, there might have been some less expensive trailers out there, but I think there was a distinction between, what was it, the steel versus the galvanized.
Yeah.
and-
No, these were galvanized. So my concern is there is a pretty good price range. We had one number and he could be the highest number out there because I saw a bunch in the 60,000 to 70,000
Mhm.
range. So that would make a big difference if we're at 70 versus 90. And I wish we had a better handle on that now.
So what is he suggesting?
92.
90, 92?
92 is what I have.
But it is still a work in progress. He's looking at numbers.
School teams.
So we're taking out the 120 for the Mack truck replacement, and instead we're putting in the trailer.
At
For
92, or you can just do
Placeholder for
a
92.
minus 28,000 for the line item.
I guess my only concern is on that is that was nowhere in the immediate need. So what happened so quickly?
So what happened was I threatened him with, if it's not in here, it's not coming back later in the year. We're not doing any appropriations. So don't show me a rusted truck 5 weeks, 5 months from now like you did last year.
Right.
So I said, I didn't think there was enough passion to get that truck passed last year, and that's why we had to deal with it in this fall. And as a board, I think we all agreed we did not want to have a lot of appropriations. If it's not in the budget, then you're gonna have to wait for it. So.
Yeah, I also would say, over the past few years, I don't think that the capital plan was really taken seriously by most people on the outside, because we have a 5-year plan, we put things in it, and then we come to budget time and everything would get cut out. We tried to be planful, we tried to save up for things, and everything got cut out. So it kind of disheartens people to look ahead and say, okay, really, what do we need to do when you're going to get told 3 times you're asked to buy a truck and you're told no? Well,
Right.
why does
Well-
it matter if you plan?
Well, Christine, I think part of that though is it.
It wasn't you guys, I'm just saying.
No,
in
but I think,
general.
part of the problem is that the capital improvements group, it's a lot of department heads, right? And it's basically what their needs and wants are. And yes, do they look at it with a mindful eye? Yes, you would hope so. But also, do they look at it as stringent as really a taxpayer would of anybody that works anywhere would like newer stuff more regularly. That's just human nature on a lot of things. So I think that's why sometimes people look at it, well, why is this coming up all of a sudden now? Because we need something new. I would like to get to the point where we do put money away and say, okay, 4 years from now, we're buying this,
Right.
this trailer or this truck, and that money's in there. And when we present these things, we stand behind it and we say, look, this is a definite need. We've all looked at it. We just didn't say a recommendation from somebody that wants a new vehicle. And then we have to stand our ground on that when we present and be passionate about it and say, yes, this is what we need to do. So that's where my hesitation is on some of these right off the bat is, well, it just came up. Why can't we put 45 this year, 45 next year, or 50 next year because of increase in costs, and then get it so it's not.
And I think that this Board of Selectmen should kind of think about what you're looking for next year as we go into the capital process. Do you want pictures of the things that are getting older so that you can see for yourself where it's at and why we need a new one? Do you want to go with the plan of trying to save ahead for things? I will work with everyone to make sure that they look 5-10 years out and really look at what's in the plan and is it where it needs to be. But people need to realize that means numbers are going to drastically change and they might jump.
Rather than pictures, I'd rather have them put on as we did this year. Have us do a walk through the facility and just show us. It's not always a truck. It could be the building, it could be a roof. So I think I got a lot out of those visits we did this year.
Yeah.
And
I mean, right now in healthcare, it's so tight that we're given a sum. So in surgical services, we're given a sum and everybody needs to go to the table with their absolute, what we call break fix. Like if it's broken and it has to be replaced, then you're at the top of the list. Everything else. So, I mean, I know you can't do this, but basically, when it comes to Donnie, he's going to get $155,000 for capital. He needs to decide what is his biggest priority. And when the bottom of that truck completely rusts away and they can't use it anymore, that rises to the top. we can start with it. Like, so what happens in this situation if we budget for, we say, all right, we're gonna go with the 92,000 for the trailer, for the dump, and something else absolutely just breaks and we can't get by without it? Is it allowed in the town budget where we're just gonna say, we're gonna take the trailer off and we have to use that 92,000 for something that just broke?
No, so
Okay.
if something happened, I don't want to give any examples because I don't want to curse it. So if something were to break and it was, say, a $50,000 value, and we had budgeted the 92 for the walking floor trailer, but we hadn't purchased it yet, you could opt to not spend that money this year, do an additional appropriation for 50,000 for the other project, and then deobligate 50,000 from the walking floor trailer so that it's a wash, but that's.
Well, the other thing too is when you say that there's not going to be any appropriations down the road, I think you have to say that. Don't take someone out of the budget just so the budget passes, knowing you're going to come back later. If something truly breaks,
Absolutely, but we have to help the townspeople understand that, because what ends up happening is that it comes back, it doesn't pass, we have no other option but to slash something, and you gotta slash something. We have to help them understand that nobody likes, everybody was very vocal about having to come back and approve additional appropriations at a town meeting.
well, there was
I don't
something.
know
to be
how
s-
we get the word out,
Well, you
but
had a truck that was rusting, and rusting doesn't happen in a day. If you have a truck that something actually breaks, you couldn't have foreseen it, and it happened, then it happened.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you
Yeah.
can't, the problem I had with the truck was that just that, what he showed pictures of didn't happen in a week or a month. It
Okay.
happened, it happened over years.
So Bob, one thing I guess I didn't ask it at this meeting, or I might have missed it. The walking floor trailer, is that something that won't make it through this year? It needs to be done now, this year? Or
Well-
can it go next year and we put half in this year, half in next year?
well, I mean,
We're already talking about next year.
I mean, the following year.
No, I know what you're saying, but what I'm saying is we're
So-
already
right,
talking
So
about
if you're
next
talking
year.
about next year's budget, you're talking about a truck that's actually 2 years away, correct?
Right.
Yeah, he's saying
Well,
to
this
buy
would
it
be
in
July,
24.
right.
well, I
instead of
mean,
in
I'm
20
assuming that Donnie's made the decision that it can't make it because he's opting to swap out the Mack truck replacement for this trailer.
Well,
So
because they got the Mack truck working. So
The
I
old
just,
one.
the
right.
old one.
So, as far as the timeline goes, we're going July 1st of 2022 to June 3rd, 2023. So if it's in next year's budget, it's in the 23-24 budget. So you're actually looking at 2 years before it's, so you can't say the truck lasts a year, well, it lasts 2 years.
Right.
all right,
Do
well, I
we
mean,
know that?
at this point, he's asking to swap it out. It's a savings right now from what he had originally had on there. I just say we leave. And I know that you think that we can get it for cheaper, but at this point, do we just want to put in the 92,000 and move on?
Also, I'll answer that question in a second. Just looking at next year's budget, capital, there's two things dropping off after this year. There's 25,000. It's in the 5th year of a lease with the tractor mower, and there's 64,685 that's dropping off because it's a 5th year lease of a ambulance. So right there, we get close to $90,000 that won't be in capital next year. As far as those two things, now they can be replaced with something else.
And those are complete ownership leases,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
That'd be the 23, 24. So still working on 20.
So if we put 92,000 in, we see where that goes.
Is that what you want to do?
I mean, with what I know now, yes, if he gets better numbers, that'd be great. And if he says, no, it'll last 2 years, that'd be nice to know. And then we budget, I'd be in favor of starting our plan and standing behind it, that we start budgeting out for those years.
I think that we
Putting
have to
money in.
I think we have to have better attendance and better capital improvement group meetings. Because, and I think we call them selectmen meetings, so we can all three be there. And I think that and when they come to the capital improvement meeting, it's Brett said, everyone wants to get the new shiny toy for their department. I am sure that one department may not really care what the other department gets or doesn't get. They just want to make sure they get what they want to have. And it should be all about needs and not wants. And thinking ahead, thinking 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. So when I've sat in those meetings before, and I'll be honest with you, I think that the town garage does a better than average job when it comes to trying to figure out what they really need and what they don't need. I can't say that about all groups that are in that meeting. But sometimes you feel like this is just a wish list and not really a need list. So I think we can maybe tighten that up next year.
Because the only thing we really have on this, in the highway department that we're working towards the real capital plan would be the bulky waste closure. Because other than that, we're paying off some other things and then we're purchasing a one-time purchase. So
Yeah.
I would like to see, so for me, the trailer would make great sense if we could make it 2 years and then we start really living out that promise of planning for our capital improvements. Because otherwise, 1 year, we have nothing on the horizon for that in
So-
this budget, right?
But what if we need the trailer and the Mack truck in 2 years?
Then we need to start planning that one.
Yeah, the thing is, looking at next year, there's the front end loader replacement, which was supposed to be a 4 or 5 year savings to get to, which got cut every year. So that's $200,000. And that was a number that Donnie gave us like 4 years ago. So I don't know if it's still that. The
I
back
doubt it.
sweeper that he's talked about getting, which he has a placeholder of $150,000 of. The thing I am going to start requiring as we go into the first capital meeting in July is actual quotes for things, because we're pulling numbers out of.
Right, I
thin
agree
air.
100%.
So that's not helpful.
Completely agree.
And I do
Agree.
think like sometimes we need to realize we are a small community. We don't use things quite the same as other municipalities, how often they use things. So I know sometimes we look at things and say, well, it's this old. In some things, yes, age does play a factor, but some things it's based on use. So I think those are the things that sometimes we all have to look at when we go through these things to say, hey, I understand it's old, but it's still useful and it's still based on how many times we use it and things like that.
Well, there's the argument of the tanker truck 2 years ago. So it was a tanker truck that was older, but only had whatever it had on it, 26,000 miles, because it didn't go far, didn't barely ever left town. So, I mean, if I had a car that had 26,000 miles, it could be 25 years old and still be a good car. So anyway,
So we're dropping that in here to 92.
right, and it's, I'm glad you brought the bulky waste, because that'll be at a meeting coming up down the road, as
Yeah.
far as how we're going to address the transfer station. And if it turns out that we decide to address the transfer station by adding a bulky waste fee, it may offset that $25,000. That's a placeholder as of now. So
So refresh my memory. Currently, there is nothing in that fund,
there's
correct?
nothing in the fund.
Yeah,
Right.
so the 25, and have we tried to budget for it in past years and it's
Mhm.
gotten cut?
Every,
All right,
That's those blank spaces before it. to the
Yeah.
left of it.
So this
Yeah.
is our first year
well, it's not
of
the first
savings for
year.
it if it goes through.
Yeah,
fingers crossed.
yeah.
And what are we predicting the total cost is?
It could be $1 million.
million,
It could
yeah.
be more than $1 million. That's why we keep trying to put something there. Because I also feel the closer we get to it, any money we have saved towards it might look better to the state, that we know it's going to happen. We've started saving money. We did our part. Please help us.
Yeah,
Right.
So between now and July 1st, we're going to have a public meeting, a public
Okay.
hearing on the transfer station that we'll have. We can ultimately make the decision. It doesn't have to go to town meeting.
All right.
Yeah.
But
So
we should do it like we did for the solar project on 184 and make sure the public knows about it. That's going to be the one thing on the agenda that night, and that's what we'll talk about.
so then the next thing, I guess, is the computer expense. Can you just give me a little background on what that is?
Yep.
And it,
So-
it looks like it's a annual expense.
Yes, so every year, Jim has his own maintenance plan that he puts together with what needs to be replaced at what point. And keep going through my folder, I will get to it. But he has specific computers that have been identified to replace. He covers computers not only for town hall, but also for Center for Emergency Services building. I think there's a server in it for this year. I probably passed.
And you feel all this should fall under capital.
Yes. Yeah, so the threshold for technology is different than it is for other capital items individually. It's in here. But I want to say it's 5 computers, a server. usually so organized, guys.
So
Sorry.
do you have any files that you contribute, like the computers or expenses to emergency services? So like I asked about the fuel. That's a cost that we pay that ultimately the fire company utilizes. Do we track that anywhere on the computer side? So we know, okay, well, emergency services is really costing us what we give them plus the fuel plus this kind of stuff.
In a centralized location, no. IT keeps track of all of their own purchases. He has a database. It's in his capital expenses.
So similar to the way Donnie keeps track of the fuel.
Yes and no, a little bit different. But he has it for the IT side, but for other areas, I don't know what other areas there would be.
Okay. And how does that work? If he researches and figures out if the computers needs to be replaced for over there in their department?
Yep.
Or is it something they say, hey, we need 2 new laptops?
No,
over
it's his maintenance schedule.
there? Okay,
And we bought all of the technology going into the building with the new building. So it's just keeping up on all of that. So if it's something that the fire company needs, say in a truck, that we don't pay for that.
So he did realize that, well, he had on his list, the ambulance service was supposed to get a new computer last year, and he felt they didn't need one, so he pushed it off a
Okay.
year. So,
yeah, that was really my question on it. Do we dictate through our IT what other departments utilize or?
no, I think he
It's in my
investigates
capital
it.
folder. That's why it's not in here.
Okay.
I didn't bring that. But he does have a full plan and I can share that with you.
Christine, on the balance sheet of to February 1st, I got that was through December 31st. There's 13,684.96 town hall, computer town hall.
Yes.
That's money that's already been allocated. So is that money earmarked for something
Yes,
specific?
he has specific plans for that money. Certain things have not been as readily available because of all of the supply chain issues. So that's why he hasn't bought everything that he would have normally bought to this point, and he has a timeline of when he does specific projects.
Okay, so that money's been earmarked.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not money you can just use as part of this year's budget. Okay, balance in capital.
Town building maintenance, just a little explanation on.
So that is to maintain any of the buildings that the town owns for anything that's more than just a typical repair. So we.
So an AC unit goes or,
AC unit goes, roof leak, furnace, something big.
so do we have a dollar threshold that makes us tap into this?
Basically, if we can't make it work in the operating budget of whatever building it is, we take it out of here.
We just noticed that in the old town hall that the water bubble, the paint's bubbled on the front of the old town hall, and there's actually, you hit it, water comes squirting out of it. It's got to be between the paint and the clapboard. So, and just something we just saw today, so.
Yeah, and we did not fund this line in the current budget. That was one of the things that was cut out last year because there was money sitting in that capital line. So the decision was made to cut that out for last year. So this is Center for Emergency Services. This is the rec center. This is both town halls. This is highway garage. This is a bigger thing at the transfer station. If anything were to happen there, hopefully not. This is this building that we're in right now.
Is it the senior center?
So how did you come up with 30,000?
That's what Donnie and I felt needed to be in there. We have a watch list of items that could go at any time.
Okay.
So that's, if you want to drop it to 20, I will go with it and we'll make it work. And if we need to come for an additional appropriation, it's good. If we need an additional appropriation, it's going to be something big and completely unforeseen.
Right.
And again, I don't say those things out loud because I don't want to jinx it.
Yeah. I'd be comfortable dropping it back to 20, just because I do feel bad because we went a year without something there, but
No, I'm
worked
okay
out.
with that.
Sean? Bob, you ready? for Sean?
Yeah, go ahead.
This account didn't used to be used in this fashion. We funded this account because at the beginning with the budget, we justified a list of projects that were to be done during that fiscal year. This wasn't a slush fund to be used for various projects that someone felt during the year were important enough to get done. As an example, knowing that Old Town Hall needs to get painted every 5 or 6 years. We anticipated that and we included that as one of our projects. When I renovated all of New Town Hall with new carpets, new furniture, paint jobs and so forth, I justified that with a number and put it it was actually a project listed to be done in that fiscal year. This wasn't a town maintenance fund to fix issues that come up. Your furnace breaks and, it's just, it
So where
sounds
would-
like now it's being used arbitrary, that if the,
So then where would you put that?
Yeah, where
did
would you
put
take it
that?
out of then?
out of town building maintenance, out of the highway department number that used to handle that before.
And
They
what's our,
handled all the buildings for those
So was
emergency
your
things.
question if you
what's
had,
what's our threshold for capital?
So we have capital lines are a minimum of $10,000 for what was identified a few years ago.
So then that would be 2710 town property maintenance, which is 7,500.
That used to handle those type of situations where we had to do a major repair.
At that time, we did not have the Center for Emergency Services building. We did not have the rec center. We did not have this building. So this is the way we've been handling things. If you want to change it, we can change it, but I don't have a list of projects at this time. We use this to fix things that need to be fixed. We don't do things that it would be nice to do.
I guess I can see it both ways. I can see if we put it in town maintenance and did it that way and then had a project list for here.
What did you say was in town maintenance? Just
7,500.
7,500?
I mean,
Yeah,
in
that's not gonna cover
2021, it was
anything.
100,000, but I'm sure that.
That
there was
298
something-
North Wesley Road utilities.
Yeah.
Okay, so the problem is that if we are working on certain items or something, we think something might happen and it doesn't, and it goes next year, the benefit of it being in here is it's still here next year. So I can see it both ways. I guess it just,
so who
comes
makes
into
up
how
that list? Is that the highway department? Is it, I mean, there's different, when you're talking about all those different buildings and we have town maintenance on all of them. So are you getting that, like you would for the capital improvements group to say, what do you have for maintenance problems over the course?
I would have to defer to Sean because it hasn't been done that way since I've been here.
And then my question, Sean, is Nicole said, if you have projects put aside and they add up to 30,000, then something happens that wasn't on the list and it's bigger than the 7,500 and that you had in the town garage maintenance, how do you fund it?
The list was approved by the board of selectmen. The board of selectmen brought a list forward at budget time. If something came up that was of a more urgent nature, then the board of selectmen can decide to spend it on, the urgent requirement and not the original plan.
yeah. I mean,
Still some flexibility.
I, like I said, I can see it both ways. I kind of like having this fund here, but I would like to know what comes out of it when it comes out of it or before. So if something
Do we
was
have any
about to
actuals that were
go,
spent?
So it's all the checks that you guys sign. So you do see the expenses as they come out of it. I don't have access to QuickBooks here, so I can get what's come out of there in the past and send it to you. But I also, my concern with going with the way that it had been done prior, which I didn't know that's how it was done prior. This was already in place this way when I started. If you make a plan of things that you think you should do, but not things you absolutely have to do because they're broken, and you do those in the beginning of the year and you spend your money and
Something
something
breaks.
breaks, you don't have the money left. So I think, you know,
So-
with the addition of these buildings, new and highly used buildings that we've acquired, we don't know the history on the maintenance of certain things. We don't know exactly when roofs were replaced on other buildings.
So I-
So
I guess I defer to Bob for the most part, because as first selectman, like you have to okay a lot of this stuff.
Mhm.
So do you prefer having an accountant like this where there's money in there when something goes,
Well,
where you say yes?
historically, have we, last year or the year before, have we gone since you've been here? Have we exceeded that number?
no, we haven't exceeded the amount that's been put into the account, and we only use it again for projects where I can't make it work in an operating line of a budget. If there is any contract that needs to be signed for any of these things, it is the first selectman that signs off on it. So I think we do have a lot of safeguards in place.
And we have to have some faith that, Bob, you're utilizing it correctly, I guess. And that Nicole and I sign those checks, and Sean, our treasurer, has to sign those checks. So if
Yeah.
there's,
I'm fine with dropping it to 20.
yeah, I am as well. And then if it is a discussion of how it's utilized in the future, then over the next year, we figure that out.
I have one other question on the school capital, C5.01, the parking lot resurfacing. Is this something that's done every couple of years? Did we not just put the parking lot in?
It's something that should be done, I think, every 3 years.
Yeah.
So this would be when it needs to be
Okay.
done, after the school construction project. The school asked us.
It's
to
under the
put it-
school capital.
Yeah, when we sent the capital requests out to all areas, this was one of the things that the school asked us to put in.
Now, if I'm,
It is.
but, but
this-
if I'm remembering correctly, and I could be wrong on this, but I think the Permanent School Building Committee used to fund this, which came out of the municipal side.
I
I'm
think
pretty
that-
sure, talking to the old chair, when he used to go out for bid of resurfacing. But it always came out of the town's budget through the Permanent School Building Committee.
But this is in school capital. It's not in town capital.
Right, but I think Sean's saying that it's not in the Board
capital.
of Ed
It's-
budget.
Yeah,
Capital
but s-
falls under general.
But so is
government side.
ambulance equipment and so is firehouse equipment. I mean, to me, it's no different than the ambulance service asking for, you know, their annual equipment
I
replacement.
guess the question would be who oversees that project? So is that Donnie would oversee that?
Yes, with the way things are right now, since there is no permanent school building committee, we would have the highway oversee that process.
So it wouldn't be their property? Or-
That was not how I envisioned it. No,
Okay,
we could,
well, that,
they could work together, but I
Right.
would put the highway foreman as the lead.
I would too, especially if it's coming out of the municipal budget. They go back and forth.
Yeah, since they're combined with the new layout, this was what people felt was best. So this is for the other side of the street, the
Yeah.
311, 297 side, not where we are right now.
And if you think about it, we probably should have a capital line item for all our parking lots. And rotate all of them when we do it down the
You know,
road.
now, soon the dust settles, what we have for parking
Yeah.
lots in the next 6 months.
So are we okay with leaving that in?
Yep, I am.
All right.
I don't have any other issues in capital.
And then I guess the other is just the turnout gear. What was the total cost? Does that
What line
finishes
are
up
you at?
after? So it's
What
C
line?
No,
307.
The turnout gear has a certain set of replacements every year. So it's a revolving, never ending.
So it's 15 to 20,000 a
That was
year.
actually in that presentation too. Do you have a
Yeah.
copy of the
Yeah.
presentation?
I did, but I just couldn't remember if we're just going through And then after this, we have a break for a few years, or?
No.
This is a pretty consistent,
Consistent number.
okay.
I think they've actually increased the number of sets of gear that they increased by one, because of now having the per diem, there's more people. So they need more sets of gear,
And then,
but they are warranted is not the right word, but they are fire rated or whatever for a certain amount of time. So this is so that it's not one big lump sum replacing all the gear at once.
and then I still am not in favor of the land acquisition fund going to 5,000. Like I said, I think if it was a purchase that the town wanted to do, then it would go to a town meeting.
So
and we would
that
take it.
started out as a
Yeah,
$20,000
we
ask.
slashed that already.
Right, we
20,000
did.
to 10 to 5. You saying you want to slash it some more?
I still think it should go down to 1,000.
Scott, Nicole, any thoughts?
I'd rather give it to the library.
Pitting one against the other. I will say this, that we did, his original ask in his letter was 20,000, and we think we brought it down to 10 before we even had our first discussion, then we brought it down to 5 as a group.
Right, but like I said, my point on it was, it has to go to town meeting anyways. So why pre-tax the residents compared to it coming out of the,
And what is
Un-
there in there now? It's like 73,000 something?
73,000. My originally thought was to put 7 in there and bring it up to an 80 even, but we decided to go down to 5 instead. And I
Right.
understand your point. The whole thought is you're pre-taxing the residents, but if there was something that was, say, 150,000.
but let them make the decision on the real project
So
compared
it's
to,
almost like, why even have the line item? So,
that's a good question.
Well, because it's a lot easier going to the town and saying, listen, we have $100,000 in the land acquisition fund that we can purchase something. It's already there. Will you just allow us to use the money that's already set aside for it versus if we don't put anything in there and something does come up, we're going to the town asking them for money that
Is in the undesignated fund.
what is actually in the undesignated fund?
roughly 3.1 million.
Yeah, and there's a range. We can't, so there, if you go over a certain percentage, we're supposed to either lower taxes or,
So when you
do
think
things.
about the undesignated fund, though, don't forget that coming down the road fairly quickly, when we talk about the demolition of the one-story wing, that $1 million isn't gonna cut it by itself, so.
What was it before? Were they asking for 20
20
and we
years
cut
in.
it to
but that,
5?
but that's the thing. The Conservation Commission isn't the one that oversees this account. I mean, they asked for this, but they're not the ones that oversee this.
No, but it's where we could tap into the money if they came to us and said they have a great piece of property. And actually, I think that Bill said it's not just for open land. It could be,
Buying land for town building.
yeah,
Or
I'm in favor. It went from 20 to 5. I'm in favor. I don't think that $4,000 is going to break us one way or another at this point. I'm in favor of continuing to try and put a little bit in there. People get nervous when you say it's coming out of the undesignated fund because they get nervous that that's going to dwindle down and dwindle down. And for something like purchasing a piece of land, that's just my thoughts.
I just, when I look at it, I look at what we can cut to minimize the impact on our residents when it comes to a tax increase or anything, especially we're excited about the extra revenue, but we forget that extra revenue is coming from the revenue that we have on here now, that increase from auto, that comes from our existing taxpayers. And when we look at things like this, these are one areas that we can cut that isn't going to impact our residents, their daily life, but it might keep a tax increase from happening. It might, when I was talking to someone the other day and they were talking about their taxes going up and they were a new resident in town, they're like, well, if these taxes keep going the way they are, we're gonna move back to where they came from or move away. And I've heard that from a few people. The problem lies with our residents that have been here forever, that have deep emotional connection to our town, that don't have that luxury to say, hey, when taxes get too high, well, I'm just gonna move here. They're gonna do whatever they can to stay here. And I think it's our job to try to minimize that increase as much as possible. So those are why, when I look at some of these line items, that's where I base my cuts on.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just a fine balance between moving forward and not just being completely stagnant and working towards something. It's a fine line between taxes and not being so stagnant that nothing happens in the town and nothing moves forward.
Oh, I agree,
I
but
don't think
open
four
space
thousand
isn't,
dollars is
isn't
going
one.
to change anybody's tax bill.
but it's the cumulative effect. So it's 4,000 here, 10,000 at the library. Like,
Yeah, but
those
we've-
are things
but
we
we've
need
cut.
to do.
So I'm really interested to see what the final, like with all of our feedback so far, I'm interested in what the final product is going to be.
So Nicole, in capital right now, we are down to 507,655, which is an increase of 264,902.
Of
So
which the major part of that is already predetermined lease agreements, correct?
So the total increase in general government operating and capital is 411,246. And in your last draft, it was an increase of 483,251. So you've cut over $70,000 today.
And what's that increase percentage wise?
1.95. It's 2.83 in government operating, 109.12 in the capital, because we've more than doubled it. And so a combined total of 1.95.
I mean,
So 1.95,
with inflation being what it is, I think a 1.95 increase is fantastic, actually, that we've been able to accomplish that on the first go round.
and as we talked about, we have additional revenue coming this year that is going to offset a lot of this.
Yeah, I mean, and to Brett's point, I do understand. I mean, if some of that is coming on the taxpayers,
Well, some
back
isn't, some
because of
isn't. I mean, the stuff
auto-
coming from the students coming from out of town, that's not.
Yeah,
taxpayers. Money
yeah.
Coming from the siting council.
so do we have a sense of the increase in revenue that we are potentially forecasting?
Well, we know what we know, so we know what's coming up through the additional taxes on vehicles rather. We know that. We know that what's coming in from the students. There's some of the irons in the fire that we don't know yet. We don't know when the solar project on 184 is actually going to start. I just spoke to them today. Starting before July 1st or after, when they're going to pull the permits. When they pull the permits, it could be $100,000 worth of permits.
Right.
So if it's after July 1st to next year.
I just think about when we have revenue increases, doesn't mean we need to spend it. So we don't need to
don't think
have an
anyone here-
increase every year.
Brad, I don't think anyone here is thinking that.
Yeah, no,
I'm not saying, I'm just saying
We are all
that this,
paying our
So in
tax
other words, if you
bills.
get an extra 5,000, you should go on a cruise rather than use it to pay bills. Is that what you're saying?
right?
So I will just say that the capital for fiscal year 21 was $502,035. So we're just about at the level that it was 2 years ago.
So, so I know we skipped ahead. Are we okay? No, I mean, are we leaving the 5,000 in for land acquisition? Because do we have consensus that we can leave that in for now, knowing where the final result is?
I'd be willing to drop it down to 2,000. That would give us even 75,000 in the account. I think they should cap it there.
I'm fine with that.
I'm comfortable.
I'm
with that.
fine with that. So 2,500?
Actually drop it down to 5,000, drop it down to 2,000.
2,000.
Take 3,000 out of it.
Okay.
And at 75,000, I don't have a problem with capping it at this point and saying, let's see what's coming down the pipe in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, it's a good down payment on something.
Okay. Is that it for budget?
Could be.
So do we have to vote on this tonight?
We have to vote to send it to Board of Finance because we have to go to Board of Finance on the March 2nd to present it to them.
So right now, it would be moving forward a government operating budget of 5,323,751. Redemption of debt staying the same at 1,382,949, and capital at 504,655. I can give you the total of that really quickly.
Can we just get the total for?
So the total without Board of Ed is 7,211,355. Total increase 408,246. And I can email this to you guys tomorrow.
What's that percentage now?
1.94.
194.
Wow, you moved the bar.
Wow. 194 does sound better than 195. though.
It does. You round down, right?
Sean, did you want to say something before we go?
And Ivana, I can give you all of these numbers in the office.
Hi, Ivana.
I'm going to give you a couple ideas to contemplate. The first being in your revenue line. I would recommend that the deobligation capital be zeroed out. Believe you have a number in there. I'm not sure what's getting deobligated, but it is shown in the last 4 years that we use this philosophy that you can't continue to fund budgets by counting on a deobligation of capital. Prior to Mike coming into office, we never had a line in the budget, redemption of capital for revenue. We just deobligated capital at a town meeting, and it went back to the undesignated fund. I'm not sure what number you have in there, but that's a number that you can't count on being in there every year.
It's $3,226 for next year. I agree with you that it should be absolutely minimal, but since
It
is a
should be
small
zero.
number-
Yeah, and last year it was 23,617.
It was worse in 3 or 4 years ago, but it's not something you should count on to balance budgets and to be there every year. And I feel it shouldn't be used as revenue in a budget, just it strictly, when it happens, it increases your undesignated fund balance.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Sean, and that's not, this year it's not a very big number, and it's not gonna hurt the budget to take that out or leave it in, so.
The next thing has to do with your capital items that I believe you said are on the last year of a lease.
mhm.
Those items should have never been on a capital budget. Basically, they were financed. It was they're not fair market, they're fair market. They're not fair market leases where you are responsible, you either turn it in or you pay fair market value at the end of the lease term. At the end of these leases, we own it. I'm suggesting that those balances in there be reflected in your redemption of debt schedule versus your capital line items where they should be. And any future leases that are used for that get reflected the same way, because you're actually financing them. And you know, like I say, they're probably dollar buyouts or whatever, instead of fair market value. In their place, in the capital line items, I would like to see some savings towards larger capital items in the coming years. Christine mentioned a couple of large ones we have coming up. This could be handled just like we do our reval, where we put in, I don't know, $25,000 a year. We could put in a certain amount. If we see a large capital item coming 3 or 4 years out, we could start putting money aside in the budget, in the capital fund for that item, just like we do, or it would basically be in the capital non-reoccurring account, just like the reval is. So I'm suggesting that you consider moving those leases over to the redemption of debt and look at your capital schedule that's 2 or 3 years out, whatever, and start saving towards those items instead of paying finance costs every time we want to purchase an item. Thank you.
So Sean, I think some of those ideas are good ideas and they should be vetted. And I think that possibly maybe an overhaul on how we build our budgets could be discussed down the road. I think possibly with the 3 selectmen, the treasurer, the admin finance director, the accounting generalist, and anyone else is involved in both paying bills, building budgets, and so on. So I agree with you that we could, just because it's been done the same way for year after year after year, doesn't mean that it can't be re-examined. So I thought those are some good thoughts. I had spoke to employee in town hall about that suggestion about going into a debt line rather than a lease line. There is some issues that we can discuss about that as far as how that works. I'd rather have her there present so she can explain it. But I don't see why we couldn't, probably maybe not for this budget, but before we create our next budget, to do some of these things and have them make changes if they make sense. So, but I think it would take a kind of a powwow of a few different people to have, because I'm sure there's different pushbacks. There's different reasons why you can do something, why you can't. We've got new software coming in. So possibly in next year's budget would be the perfect time prior to that budget building that we do that. But I think doing it in this year's budget may be tough only because of time constraints. But I think there's you made a lot of good points. And I think there's no reason why they can't be discussed going down the line. Any comment by the other selectmen?
I do have 2 more questions on this budget before we decide to move it forward. And it's just because I don't remember. It's so B2604, the state troopers line item. Was that after your deduction of lowering the overtime?
Yes.
Okay. And then the 2317 United Family Services, the 3564, we're giving them, that was after the COVID.
Yes, they had asked for 8,000 and change.
Okay, all right. Those were my 2 questions. Thank you.
Okay. So do I hear a motion on moving the budget forward?
I'd like to make a motion to move the budget forward with the numbers. Do I have to read the numbers? No, with the numbers Christine gave us, with a total of 1.94% increase from last year.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. Any additional discussion?
No, just I let you guys know my thoughts on a few line items, and I appreciate the discussion back and forth.
Thank you, Brett.
Say,
Okay, with no other discussion, let's take a vote. All those in favor of moving the budget to the Board of Finance, which I'll present on March 2nd, and hopefully you both come to watch. Say aye.
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 Aye. 3-0. Okay. Sure.
Correct.
to business. Number 8, ARP funding. So we heard in the, when we were at the community conversation, what the thoughts were, and the overwhelming thought was the demolition of the one-story wing. We have the ARPA funding available. We can vote to designate it as lost revenue. If it doesn't have to be lost revenue, then we can use it for the demolition of the one-story wing. Because of the PCBs and the asbestos and the other things in there, it can be used for remediation. It also can be used for town buildings and services. I mean, there's some people that, I think Montville is building a $800,000 animal shelter. There's other people doing other things. This is something the town has asked for. It helps the taxpayer because if they truly want to get it down, there might be a way for us to do it. It doesn't impact them as much by using this ARPA funding and then possibly going to the Board of Finance for some additional funds out of the undesignated fund. And we might be able to do this with no new tax dollars, using older tax dollars that are already paid and ARPA funding. I'd like to have this go to the town meeting when we do call a town meeting. In the final decision of the ARPA funding, it says we can do it. As you heard at the community conversation when Jim and Amanda spoke at that second group. Any discussion on that? And then if they want, after we do discussion, I'd like to vote to send that to or just vote to approve it to go to use as lost revenue, then we can at a later date send it to a town meeting.
So is there a dollar value attached to that or just?
$1 million. $1 million.
What I literally was just gonna do that.
Your cat.
$1 million.
So you're looking for a motion to use that as lost revenue, not just to move it forward towards the,
Right, I don't think, go ahead.
So the official process would be, we can designate up to, the standard allowance is up to $10 million to spend on government services through a period of performance to replace lost public sector revenue. So the actual project for demolition would not qualify under COVID under the ARPA categories. So we would first have to designate it as lost public sector revenue, and then it would be reclassified as spending on government services, which includes general government administration, staff and administrative facilities, environmental remediation, and basically anything else that the government would be doing.
so environmental.
So two-phase process to appropriately designate the funds.
I think the only pushback we would get on this would be, so is how does it relate to COVID? My answer to that was it relates to COVID because it saves our tax bills, taxpayers $1 million, which would come out of their pockets, which they, in COVID times, maybe have made less money or had expenses they didn't expect. So anytime you can save the taxpayer money, maybe it may not be directly COVID related, but it's taxpayer related. We can't reduce taxes with ARPA funding, but you can do a project that would have required additional taxes.
So completely in favor. And I've said it in past meetings, I think it's really important, just based on feedback that residents have said to me and things I've read on social media. We need to help them understand the money that we've already designated from ARPA to the social and mental health issues. North Stonington doesn't have something specific that helps that. We've given money to the social service agencies around us that are going to help our residents. So I think we need to make sure that the residents understand that. And we need to, at the town meeting, do a really good job of helping them understand why this is all legal and on the up and up from the ARPA funds, that we're not somehow, the towns realize that we have to take this down, that we don't have the money, and now we're going to just use this free money. We have to help them understand that it is completely legal and on the up and up. And we have already designated money for social services and mental health.
And the money that the taxpayer paid to have the building taken down as part of the building project was used for remediation in the refurbishing of the elementary school. So
Yeah.
it's,
And we need to highlight what EDC is doing with their two projects, because that's direct money right into the hands of
Small business.
small business owners.
So if you look at all our funding so far, we've done a lot with cultural coalition, small business, mental health, Ledge Light, Pocket Neighborhood, TVCCA.
Yep.
I mean, everything we've done, the majority of what we've done.
Yeah.
Even than what we did with the fire company, per diem is still public safety.
Mhm.
So I think we've done a good job of keeping in mind what the taxpayer did want. And we know if we were all at the conversation, it was overwhelming on what they thought about the one-story wing.
So did we already, I know we've earmarked the 100,000 for the second EDC project, but have we already, that has to go to the town meeting
So
also?
we haven't
Okay.
approved it yet as a
Okay.
board, because we're waiting for the final work to be done on
Okay.
that. But we have
But
earmarked the
this
money.
million that's left is without the 100,000.
It also leaves us about another 147,000 that still has not been earmarked for anything yet.
Okay.
It doesn't empty the vault. There's still money in there, but
Okay.
just using that number.
So I'm not gonna lie, I didn't completely understand but you don't have to re-explain it, the two-step process that we have to go through. Either way, tonight, we're voting to move this forward to a town meeting. So explain to me what we're voting on tonight
We're
then.
just moving it from as ARPA funds. It will go to a town meeting because it's more than.
Yes,
It's more than the $20,000. So we're moving it, redesignate it as from ARPA funds into a lost revenue category.
So the categories for the use of ARPA funds are replace lost public sector revenue, support the COVID-19 public health and economic response, provide premium pay for eligible workers performing essential work, and invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. So those are the only buckets that you can put the money in.
Yep.
So to be able to use it for the demolition of this building, the only qualifier is to replace the lost public sector revenue. And then once you have that, you can only use that lost public sector revenue to provide government services. So the demolition of this falls under the government services
And we
category.
fall under the standard deduction for lost revenue.
okay,
And there's going to be an audit being done by the state, and we have to make sure we do things correct. So when we're audited, and that's why we have to make sure it goes into the right bucket.
okay.
We will have to send this to a town meeting when we call a town meeting. Okay, so can I get a motion to move the $1 million into the lost revenue, designated lost revenue as?
So
been-
moved.
Thank you.
Second,
Great. Any other discussion?
No.
Hearing none, then all those in favor of moving the 1 million be designated as lost revenue, say aye. Aye.
aye.
Okay, 3-0. Now, moving right along to appointments. We only have a couple of appointments tonight, and they should be in your packet. We have 2 for the cemetery committee. And we have 1 that may not be in your packet for the tree warden. So with the cemetery committee, I'm going to recommend, because they're recommended to us by the cemetery committee, we actually had three applications. I spoke to the one person that came in the last one, and I asked him if he might want to be considered to go into another board of commission. He's thinking of it. But we have 2, Rachel White and Donna Brandelli, that were recommended to us from the chair of the cemetery commission. I'm looking to get a motion to appoint them.
Make a motion to appoint both applicants, Rachel White and Donna Brandolini, to the Cemetery Commission.
I second that.
Great. Any discussion? If none, let's take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, the other appointment that you don't have on it is we have a new assistant foreman, Alan Ladd. They've talked to him about being the tree warden. Joe Rubino was the tree warden prior to this, so he'll take the classes he needs, and he receives a small stipend for that. He has agreed to do it, so I'm asking to reappoint. It is a position in town.
So moved.
Thank you.
What's his name?
Alan Ladd,
So Alan Ladd is the assistant foreman. Okay.
but he can also be the tree warden.
And say that
He
again.
can also be the tree warden.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
that's how it was prior.
Okay.
You second?
I
Brett's?
do second. that.
Perfect. Okay, all in favor of making Alan Ladd the tree warden, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, down to minutes.
All right. I make a motion to approve the Town of North Stonington Board of Selectmen meeting minutes from February 8th, 2022 at 6:30 PM as written and submitted in our packet.
All right, second that motion. Okay, any discussion? If none, all in favor of accepting the minutes from February 8th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, okay, 3-0.
I make a motion to accept the Town of North Stonington Board of Selectmen special meeting with the Board of Finance minute. So do we both submitted them? Did they submit minutes and we submit our own minutes?
Yes.
Okay, because we called our own
You
meeting
called
to
your own
order.
meetings,
Yep,
you have your
okay.
own minutes, they both get filed.
So these are our minutes from the Town of North Stonington Joint Board of Selectmen Special Meeting with the Board of Finance on February 16th, 2022 at 7 PM as written.
Second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Public comment. Is there any public comment by Mr. Sean Murphy or anyone online?
Anybody that's still awake out there?
Get home before it snows.
Brett brought up a point that reminded me of something when he asked about the question about what's the total labor increase with the 2%. And I think the only way we have now to do that is an Excel spreadsheet of the list of all the employees and to figure 2% off of that. There's no way currently to go into our accounting system and ask for that, answer that particular question because we don't have, as part of the line of accounting, we don't use an expense element as part of the line of accounting. And I'm hopefully with the new accounting system, we will, that it'll actually be part of the accounting string to include an expense element so that we can answer those type of questions easily without referring to another spreadsheet. Another example would be if we wanted, if the town wanted to award an office supply contract, how do we calculate currently how much we use, how much we spend on office supplies when they're purchased out of all different accounts under, the different departments. They may be an office expense line. It has a different code number in each different department. It's not the same in each department. It also might be used for other things besides office supplies. So I really think it's important that our new line of accounting in the new accounting system has not only an element in the line of accounting for the fund, but also, department, the type of expense, so that, once again, how much do we spend on propane? Let's award a contract for propane. And all right now it's comes out of all different accounts. So setting up that line of accounts, it's important that we have an expense element as part of the line of accounting so that we can answer those questions that when they come up, and it'll also facilitate less use of separate Excel spreadsheets on the side to calculate things all the time. And we could actually keep track of not only that's good for budget. The labor, that spreadsheet might be used for budgeting now, but you don't have what have we spent to date on total labor. You can't go anywhere and answer that question because we don't utilize a good chart of accounts. And It's one of the reasons I'm happy that we're switching accounting systems. I just hope we do it right and that we include that expense element in our line of accounting so that we can answer questions as they come up.
Sure, I think we'd all be disappointed if we spent the kind of money we spent on this system. And I see the training that Christine and Sue have gone through day after day, pretty much a full afternoon and week after week. And I think we'd all be very disappointed if we didn't have something much, much better than what we have now. So I agree. And I think that they're spending a lot of time right now working on the chart of accounts. And I agree, you should be able to hit a button and find out, as you said, how much petroleum do we spend in the whole town? What do we buy in the whole town? What do we have for office supplies? There's got to be a way to that it's in its own line, but it can also grab all that stuff. It's got to have some designation on that. And yeah, I can't imagine that you're not the only one that said that. We've had other people come in that high T people have said, hey, we're hoping it does this, and that's what we're working towards. So I'm not an IT guy. I'm relying on those that are. But yeah, I think it's going to be a much better situation than we have now. So, and then I think you've touched on a lot of that, haven't you already? I mean, they're in their offices, shut it with the door shut for 3 hours a day for 5 days in a row. Come visit them. Sometimes you see they can't talk to. There's meeting signs on their doors. But thank you, Sean. I agree. We better get something good out of this with the kind of money the town's spending. So.
And I want to say, I thought that comment was spot on. It would be good to know what we're spending on what, the total dollars, easy. So Christine doesn't have to go through papers and I think it might be beneficial to have those numbers on the salary and payroll for our Board of Finance presentation. So when they see an increase like that, we can justify, well, the 1.9 isn't based on extra spending on all these different items. A bulk of it is our salary.
Yeah, I'm sure we can, I mean, if we can do that, we can say, okay, with this percent increase as a placeholder, what does it mean to the overall budget?
Yeah.
Take the number of people with that increase, using their base pay whether it be 2% or whatever it is, and we can do that. That makes sense.
I have a spreadsheet. I don't have it here.
Okay.
Okay,
So
stop by the
Thank you.
office. Also, your earlier comment, Sean, I think there is a validity to that. I think that there's no reason why we can't sit down with a group and re-examine how we build budgets, how we look at budgets. So we have new software, we have some new ideas. We don't have to do it the way it was done 10 years ago or 5 years ago. I agree. Maybe it's time for this particular group of selectmen to re-examine how we do budgets. So, all right. Our next meeting is, well, there's two things I want to say. Our next meeting is March 8th, 2022, which is it says it's a joint.
it's not. I don't
it's
know why it
not.
says that.
It says that's just our regular meeting, but we do have one on March 2nd. It's not on here. It is a joint meeting.
No, that is not a joint meeting. It is
Oh,
a
it's
Board
not
of
joint meeting. So
Finance
this is-
meeting.
we're- excuse
You're
me.
presenting.
You know, so we'll be here. We'll be here, but it's not a joint meeting.
So do you, should we come?
If you'd like. I mean, myself and Nita would always go when Mike was presenting, just to listen to how he presented in case we get asked questions after the fact.
So that's March 2nd at what time?
March 2nd at 7.
And
Now,
it's really the Board of Finance meeting.
yes, I will say this, is that the only thing on their agenda that evening? If they have other things, you don't have to stick around. If you want to hear the presentation of what we spoke about, so you know that I'm presenting it the way that we as a board agreed to, that'd be fine. And then, I mean, if they're going to go into future strategies and some of the things that they speak about, it doesn't mean I have to hang around, at that time. So, or do you? All right. And then our regular meeting is on March 8th. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you. Do I have a
I
second?
second that.
With enthusiasm. Thank you. All right. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The meeting is adjourning at 9:12.